Good morning, Drew.
Hi, Tim.
You really want to install iOS 18 beta, don't you?
No, I don't. It's a work phone now, okay? I'm using it for work. It's too dangerous.
But you like some of the features in iOS 18. You want to test them out.
I do. I can be patient, though, alright? There's just a little time I gotta wait.
Do it. Just do it.
Tim, I can't. It's too dangerous. It's too risky.
It's free now. You don't even need an Apple developer account. Just install the beta.
Tim, I don't even have my phone on me, okay? It's recording this video.
Alright, then I'm gonna install it myself. Let me see.
Tim, oh, God.
How do I exit the recording here? Good morning!
That's way too close. Way too close.
It's just like our events. It's shot on iPhone.
I guess a lot of people took my recap video as somewhat negative or pessimistic, and I genuinely don't like coming across that way, but I also think it's worth mentioning that not all Apple events are the same. Some of them are exciting and have really good info, and some of them are kind of disappointing and have surprising info, both good and bad. And because Apple Intelligence, I think, annoyed me the most, I had kind of a bad taste in my mouth, but I don't want that to detract from the fact that there's a lot of iOS 18 features that Apple didn't even draw a lot of attention to in yesterday's event that I really genuinely liked. So to try to sway a little bit more on the positive side of things, I'm going to be talking about the 10 most favorite things I've seen in iOS 18, specifically the top 10 things that Apple didn't talk much about or needed to elaborate more on, in my opinion. So that's why I'm talking about them today. And first of all, y'all know how big of a sucker I am for tiny, useless details that Apple puts into the software, and there was a huge one that immediately made me want to put iOS 18 on my main, and that has to come down to the button indentation animation. Say that 10 times fast. But of course, this serves no functional purpose, but it's the kind of thing that makes me love iOS so much more because there's all these little tiny animations that make everything just feel a little bit more fluid and a little bit more immersive, and lots of people have been posting about it. It was very noticeable from day one. But yeah, when you push the side button or you push the volume buttons, there's this slight inward animation on the display that just makes it look like it's reacting a little bit to the button pushing. Does this help in any way? No. Does it serve a functional advantage? Will most people notice it? Of course not. But I love this kind of bullcrap that they put in their software. It's the kind of thing that makes me an Apple sheep, is it's like, oh yeah, just little things like that. It's not like a deal maker for a lot of people, but it's little details like that that Apple just does so well that I appreciate so immensely. You can tell an ungodly amount of time and attention went into just exactly how to make it dimple just the right amount to maximize the dopamine hit I get when using my phone. It's not good for me, but man, love that. Feature number 2 that I think should be mentioned is that while everybody who was trying to be optimistic about iPadOS 18 was bragging about math notes, like, wow, look at all the math and equations you can draw now. Not only did they add a calculator to the iPad, they really took it to the next level with all the Apple Pencil features. Well, actually, all of those things are still on iOS 18. They just didn't want to bring it up when talking about the iPhone, so it felt like the iPad was getting something special and unique, when in reality, even on your iPhone, you'll be able to write out and draw these equations, and it can solve them. So all of these changes come to the calculator app on the iPhone as well, and throughout other apps as well. If you're writing up a bunch of notes, it will do the math for you and prevent you from even having to launch the calculator app a lot of the time when you're just writing things out. So I guess you could consider this point a slight dock on iPadOS for not being as special as we thought, but also a slight appreciation for iOS 18. It was like, this was actually cooler and better than we thought. Number 3 was one I was a little bit confused by, but I'm glad with the UI element, and that is the charge limiter optimization. As far as I can tell, this is still only available on the iPhone 15 series, I'm afraid. Really don't understand why this should come to all iPhones, but now you have a bit more of a slider instead of just a hard 80% cap. It gets a little bit specific in my opinion. Like, I'm not sure how many people out there would specifically want their phone to just charge to 95%. Like, that's a bit high if you're trying to preserve battery health, but not quite 100%. I don't get it, but a lot of people out there I saw were very grateful for having a 90% option, who just felt like 80 was a little too low, but they still wanted to preserve their battery health a little bit more. So more controls over the charge limiter, which just a few years ago we didn't even have. So I'm grateful to see them doubling down on the charging optimization. That's great. And number 4 is mainly just my impression of the new home screen screen colorizer and dark mode features. Apple really did a great job with this in more ways than I think people appreciate. At first glance, everybody was like, oh yeah, well, Material You, right? Android already has this where you set a wallpaper and it tries to match all of your app icons to be the same as that wallpaper. And I did try to use it on my Android phones in the past, but I quickly ran into this issue where if it's not optimized for a bunch of your third-party applications, then it kind of ruins the whole illusion in the first place. And I'm noticing more and more with the screenshots people are posting for iOS 18 that Apple paid attention to that. They realized that if you're going to have a theme color for all of your apps, it's kind of pointless if they're not all the same, right? That's a big point I think Android missed with Material You, is like nobody wants all of the apps to be the same color except for one or two. That's always just going to be awkward and kind of throw off the whole thing. So Apple made sure that even third-party apps where devs have not optimized the app icon for this new iOS 18 customization, Apple can just automatically figure out what the accents of those apps are and darken them or colorize them exactly the way you want, and that results in a much more consistent app layout across people's home screens, even if a lot of them do look bad. Yes, that's the downside of letting people put apps wherever they want or colorize them however they want. There's a lot more ugly wallpapers to choose from now, but hey, they're your ugly wallpapers, and that's the beauty of customization. You get to decide exactly how ugly or how nice you want them to look, and I really appreciate that Apple went the extra mile to make sure this feature works not just for native apps, but also for third-party ones as well, without much extra work from the developer at all. Number 5 is one that I definitely did not see coming. Apple's letting you customize kind of the width of the flashlight feature. For one, there's a new animation in Dynamic Island to give you more controls over the flashlight, but now swiping side to side lets you kind of narrow in the focus of the flashlight if you'd rather it be further distance or just wider field of view. What the heck, Apple? I didn't even know our flashlights could do that, but apparently, yeah, we got some more flashlight options now, so thank you. Number 6 was one that Apple kind of said in the event, but didn't really talk as much about or detail as much as I would like, which is that there's a bigger view for apps now, where basically all the apps just get a little bit larger, which I guess is good for accessibility. I know a lot of older people that would be helpful to, but the side effect of that feature that I really love, that I've been asking for years for, is they finally let you remove app labels. So I've always thought it was pointless to have the name of the app under every single app, because you can see the icon and after a while you know what it is, you know what it does. Maybe it's confusing for other people, but again, it doesn't hurt to give people the option to turn it off, and having that larger app view does result in all of those app labels going away, which is so much cleaner and looks so much nicer in my opinion. Even though I don't necessarily want my apps to get a little bit bigger, I just like the cleaner look, so I'll definitely be turning that on as soon as I get iOS 18. Don't need to throw unnecessary text at the user, especially when we know what all of these different app icons mean. You really think you need to have the word mail underneath the mail icon? We've been looking at that same icon for decades now. I think for the most part those app labels are kind of pointless, but that's just me. Something I really appreciated that Apple didn't talk that much about, but it looks great. Another detail that more people realized after installing iOS 18 is Apple brought a lot of changes to the settings app. Wasn't all Vision OS-ified like some of the rumors were saying, but they did make it a little easier to manage your iCloud and your storage, and General was just probably getting too bloated within iOS 18, so it feels like they organized it a little bit more to make it a bit easier for people to understand all of the things that are stuffed into that General tab. Some people didn't really like the old subscriber edition badging that they put into the iCloud window. It kind of looked like a special elite club, like, ooh, you're paying 99 cents a month for iCloud storage. But I thought it was a nice little touch. I thought it was a nice little detail, a little bit fresh without being too confusing, so good on you, Apple, for updating settings. And another feature that didn't really get much screen time, but it was mentioned on the website, is that Apple is bringing kind of that AirPods style pop-up animation to make it easier to pair to Bluetooth devices to non-Apple equipped devices. So I'm not sure if this is coming to every single Bluetooth device, because probably not every Bluetooth device is set up for it, but just knowing that there's going to be third-party options now that can take advantage of that ease of pairing system, which it seemed like there were other companies figuring out how to find a backdoor to activate that through AirPods anyway. But I thought it's always from the beginning been a great pairing method and much more simple or intuitive than explaining to someone, find the settings app, then go to Bluetooth, then try to pair the devices. No, this should be streamlined for third-party Bluetooth devices, not just Apple's own. So the EU might applaud them a little bit on that feature as well. Good on you, Apple. And, you know, I've been mostly disappointed with a lot of the home app accessories I've bought in the past. They just get too buggy and they rely too much on mesh networks, and and they were too unreliable for me, so I kind of just stopped using the Home app as a whole. But I noticed in iOS 18, I might actually start using the Home app a ton of the time, or at least the Home widget, because Apple says that they're bringing electricity usage native integration into this, and it's only going to be available for eligible PG&E customers. And there's never once in my life been a perk to being a PG&E customer until today. But I actually think this feature that lets you track what your energy usage is and how much that energy is costing you on a daily basis, this is perfect for PG&E customers because they have some of the highest electricity rates in the world. They literally suck. I hate them so much. They have a monopoly. We can't do anything about them. They're burning downtown. Anyway, PG&E is terrible, but I'm sick of using their crappy, horrible website to track all of my energy usage, and the fact that Apple's specifically listing my own utility on the website as this is a feature that will be available to PG&E customers to see what your energy consumption and what the pricing looks like. As someone who's very energy conscious about how much we're actually using AC and how much we're away from the house and trying to be as efficient as possible, this UI looks really clean, and PG&E was in desperate need of help from Apple to make this data much easier to access. And it didn't really get much highlight or talk at the event, but I'm really excited to try out that feature specifically, and I can show you how much PG&E is screwing up every day. Lastly, I'm not sure exactly if it's so much of a favorite feature or is just something interesting that I noticed, but it's surprising that Apple's actually bringing the Passwords app functionality to Windows. But I read on the website that it's not a designated app. It's actually found through the iCloud for Windows app, which has been there for a while if you want to keep accessing a lot of your notes or pages and stuff like that. But what's interesting to me is they specifically brought that Passwords functionality to the app, not iCloud for web. Some of you might hate this, some of you might respect it. I kind of respect it, honestly, but I think it's worth noting that Apple could have added the Passwords app, or at least the password key functionality to iCloud for web, to Android via the browser, or again, through designated app, just like we have an Apple Music app on Android. But Apple probably thought about that and realized that having all of your iCloud keychain passwords available on Android would suddenly make the switch to Android much, much easier. And that's something Apple wants to make sure they avoid at all costs. They do not want to make it easier to switch to an Android phone. I mean, can you blame them? Why would they? They have nothing to gain from that and everything to lose from that. So it's a little bit icky. It's a little bit, business being business, but I kind of had to respect the hustle that they're like, yeah, we'll bring it to Windows. Even if you're not using a Mac, that's okay. But what if you want to use an Android? Well, that's your problem then. You have to figure that out on your own. For the same way, Apple will only let you schedule iMessage texts to other iPhones. I don't know why that's the case. Apple probably thinks for scheduled text to work, you need like both phones to be running iMessage or something, but no, they won't let you schedule an SMS text or an RCS text, which I always thought, shouldn't that be just on the sender? It shouldn't have anything to do with the receiver, but Apple just being Apple again. I'm sure the European Union will have a talk with them and get this all straightened out. But what are your guys' favorite iOS 18 changes? What are your favorite, most notable improvements or upgrades? Feel free to let me know down in the comments below. And thank you to everybody supporting this channel directly. It seriously helps us out a ton, as does just watching these videos. So thanks again. This is your Apple Sheep here, and I will see you all in the next one.